Good evening, dear friend. Wherever you are tonight, maybe lying in bed or watching the moonlight through your window, welcome back. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? I love reading your messages from around the world. Tonight, we travel to the ancient world of 1001 Nights, where Queen Scheherazade told stories of wonder and magic to a sleepless king. Tales of flying carpets, hidden treasures, and genies in golden lamps await you beneath the desert stars. So take a deep breath, let your heart grow calm, and listen as our story begins. The story of the envious man and the envied man. In a large and bustling city, there once lived two men whose houses stood opposite each other. One of them was kind and humble, the other bitter and full of envy. The envious man's hatred grew so fierce that his neighbor, though gentle and patient, was finally forced to move far away. He told himself that perhaps it was their closeness that had stirred such resentment. For despite all his efforts to be friendly and gracious, he could never soften the hard heart of the man across the street. So he sold his house, gathered his few belongings, and left for the capital, where he bought a small piece of land half a mile from town. There stood a modest home with a lovely garden and a wide, quiet courtyard. In the center lay an old water cistern, deep, forgotten, and long unused. The good man settled there and soon devoted his life to solitude and prayer. He turned his house into a retreat for monks and built several small cells for those who wished to live in peace. Before long, his reputation for wisdom and virtue spread far and wide. People came from distant places, merchants, noblemen, and even city officials, to seek his blessing. Everyone who met him went away feeling lighter, believing heaven had touched them through his prayers. In time, the fame of this gentle hermit reached the very city he had left behind, and to the ears of the envious neighbor. Hearing of the man's honor and the love he now received, the envious one grew restless and consumed with despair. His hatred burned hotter than ever. He abandoned his home, left his trade, and set out with one dark purpose: to kill the man he had once called neighbor. When he arrived at the monastery, the hermit, remembering him, welcomed him warmly. "My friend," said the hermit, "how glad I am to see you after so long." But the visitor smiled falsely and replied, "I have come to discuss a matter of great importance, something that must be spoken of privately. Let us walk in the courtyard, where no one can overhear us. And since evening is drawing near, I beg you to send your monks to their rooms. The hermit, suspecting nothing, agreed. Together, they walked in the quiet courtyard. The air was cool, the sky dim. The visitor spoke softly and at length, until, as they reached the edge of the old cistern, he suddenly seized the hermit and thrust him in. No one saw what happened. The wicked man fled into the night, certain that his deed was done. At last, he thought, the world shall hear no more of him. But he was wrong, for spirits dwelled in that ancient cistern, guardian beings unseen by mortal eyes. They caught the hermit gently as he fell, lowering him to the bottom without harm. Though dazed, he felt no pain, only a strange calm, as if he were suspended between waking and dream. Then he heard voices. "Do you know," said one, "who this man is whom we have just saved?" Several answered, "We do not." "He," said the first, "is the kindest of mortals. He left his city in hopes of healing his neighbor's envy. His goodness has made him beloved by all, and for that very reason, the envious man sought to destroy him. But fate has spared him. Tomorrow, the emperor himself will visit this place to ask the holy man to pray for his daughter, the princess." Another spirit asked, "Why does the princess need his prayers?" "Because," replied the first, "she is haunted by Maimun, son of Dimdim, a spirit who has fallen in love with her. Yet this good hermit will cure her easily. In his monastery lives a black cat with a small white spot at the tip of its tail. He need only pluck 7 hairs from that white patch, burn them, and let the smoke pass over the princess's head. Then Maimun's power will break forever, and he will never dare come near her again." The hermit listened to every word. When the voices faded, silence returned until dawn. As the first light of morning entered the cistern, he saw a crack in its side. Carefully, he climbed out and returned to the monastery, where his brethren rejoiced to see him alive. He told them only that his guest had meant him harm, and withdrew to his cell. Soon after, the black cat came rubbing against his robe, as it always did. The hermit gently plucked 7 white hairs from its tail and set them aside. Not long after sunrise, the emperor's grand procession arrived at the monastery gates. The air filled with the sound of drums and trumpets. The emperor dismounted and entered humbly, surrounded by his ministers. "Reverend Father," he said softly, "you already know why I have come." And the hermit bowed, ready to do what heaven had revealed to him in the depths of the night. "Your Majesty." "Yes," the friar answered, humble. "If I am not mistaken, the princess's illness is the very reason I have been honored, undeservedly, with the privilege of receiving your Majesty." "Indeed," the emperor replied. "Sir, If by your prayers you can help my daughter recover, you will have given me life anew. This is what I hope you may do. Your Majesty, the kindly man said, if you will bid the princess be brought here to me, I trust that by God's help and great mercy she shall be wholly healed and restored. The king rejoiced without measure and at once sent for his daughter. Shortly afterward, the princess arrived, accompanied by a great retinue of ladies-in-waiting and court officials. She wore a veil so that none might behold her face. The chief of the friars caused a brazier to be brought and set it before the princess. As soon as he laid 7 cat hairs upon the glowing coals, the demon Maimon, son of Dimdin, gave a terrible cry and departed the princess, though no one saw the leaving. At first she lifted the veil to see where she found herself and cried aloud, "Where am I? Who has brought me here?" Hearing this, the emperor could not contain his joy. He clasped his child to his breast and kissed her eyes. He likewise kissed the friar's hand and said to the courtiers about him, "Tell me your counsel. What reward does this man deserve, who has cured my daughter thus?" All answered that he deserved to be married to the princess. "That pleases me," the emperor continued, "and I accept this man as my son-in-law from this very hour." Not long after, the chancellor died. The emperor appointed the friar to succeed him. Then the emperor himself passed away without a son to succeed him. The orders and the militia of the realm met together and agreed to proclaim the new chancellor as emperor. The kindly friar took the crown, inheriting the throne from his father-in-law. One day, while the emperor was riding with his court, he happened to behold the man who had long envied him, mingled among the common folk by the roadside. The king bade a high minister ride up and softly said, "Go and bring that man here to me, but take care not to frighten him." The minister obeyed. When the envious man was brought before him, the emperor said, "My friend, I am very glad to see you again." Then he turned to another courtier and commanded, "At once give this man 1,000 gold coins from my treasury. Besides that, grant him 20 loads of our finest wares from my storehouse, and appoint a guard strong enough to escort him and conduct him safely home." Having entrusted this charge to the minister, the emperor bade farewell to the envious man and resumed his progress. When I had told that fierce spirit, the very one who had slain the princess of Ebony Isle, the whole of this tale, I drew my conclusion and said, "O spirit, do you see that the benevolent emperor not only gladly forgot how near the envious man had come to killing him, but treated him kindly and sent him home with all the generosity you have just heard? I pleaded with the old villain to follow so noble an example and spare my life. Still, I could not move him. "All I will do for you," he said to me, "is not to kill you. But do not rejoice yet that you shall return whole and safe. I must show you what my magic can do." With that, he seized me fiercely and bore me through the high arch of an under-earth castle. The earth opened, and he flew through. He lifted me so high that the world looked no larger than a small white cloud. From that height, he hurled himself down like a thunderbolt and set foot upon the peak of a mountain. There he scooped up a handful of earth, uttered, if one could call them words, some incantations I could not understand, and cast the soil upon me. "Cast off your human face," he cried, "and take the face of the ape." He vanished at once, leaving me alone, transformed into a monkey, heavy with grief, stranded in a strange land, whether near or far from the realm of my sire, I could not tell. From the high mountain, I made my way down into a flat, open country. After a month's wandering, I reached its farthest bounds, to the very edge of the sea. The waters were calm then. I spied a boat about half a mile from shore. Not to lose such a chance, I broke off a stout branch, dragged it into the water, and rowed it, one leg on each side, holding 2 paddles I had made with my hands. So I rowed myself toward the vessel. When I drew near enough to be plainly seen, those aboard, the sailors and passengers who crowded the deck, stood amazed at the strange sight. Every eye regarded me with wonder. I came alongside the ship, seized a rope, and climbed up onto the deck. But being mute, I found myself in terrible distress. Indeed, my danger now was scarcely less dreadful than when I lay within the grasp of that fierce spirit. The merchants were superstitious folk and given to far-reaching fears. They believed that by taking me aboard, I might bring ill fortune upon their ship. Thus one said, "Let us give it a club to beat it dead." Another said, "I will have an arrow through it." A third cried, "Throw it overboard." Some among them perhaps would have done as they spoke, had I not clung to the captain's coat and prostrated myself at his feet. I gripped his garment with the manner of one beseeching, deeply moved by my gesture and the tears streaming from my eyes. He sheltered me. He declared that anyone who sought to harm me should repent it. He stroked me at length. As for me, being unable to speak, I could only express my gratitude by humble signs. After that still spell, a steady breeze rose, gentle but persistent. For 50 days it did not change, and it carried us at last to the haven of a fair city, populous and thronged with trade. Our ship made fast there. That city was of great consequence, being the capital of a mighty kingdom, soon countless small boats surrounded our vessel. They came laden with folk, who either came to greet friends newly arrived, or to ask of news from the places our ship had left, or simply to sate their curiosity at seeing a craft come from afar. Among these were several magistrates who, in the emperor's name, wished to speak with the merchants aboard. The traders went ashore to present themselves. One magistrate said, "Our emperor has sent us to express his pleasure at your arrival. He desires that each of you write upon a roll of parchment a few lines to explain the sovereign's design." He added that they had lost a chancellor, most worthy in both conduct and the most perfect handwriting. That great minister had died only a few days past. Our emperor was grievous in heart, for he never looked upon the chancellor's hand without admiration, and so he solemnly vowed that he would bestow the chancellorship only upon one whose writing matched that of the late minister. Many had offered their pen, yet as yet in our realm there was none deemed worthy to wear the chancellor's robes. Among the merchants aboard the ship, each man who fancied his handwriting fine enough to win the emperor's favor took his turn with the pen. When all were done, I stepped forward and gently lifted the scroll from the hand of the last writer. The company stared in alarm, thinking I meant to tear it apart or cast it into the sea. But when they saw that I held the parchment with care and made a humble gesture to request my turn, their fear softened into wonder. Never before had they seen a monkey write, and none could believe that I might surpass them in skill. Some even tried to snatch the paper away. Yet the captain, who had watched me often, raised his voice. "Let him be. If he soils the paper, I shall punish him myself. But if his hand proves steady, and I hope it will, for never have I known a creature so deft or so wise, I swear before you all that I shall call this monkey my son. For truth be told, he has more wit than my own boy at home." No one dared object. I took the pen, dipped it softly in ink, and began to write. 6 graceful forms of the Arabic letter I set upon the page, each one shaped into a couplet, a little poem of praise for the king. When I finished, the letters shone upon the scroll so fair and flowing that even the proud merchants bowed their heads. Never had such beauty been seen in all that land. The officials carried the writing to the emperor. He glanced once at the merchant's marks, but his gaze lingered on mine, and his heart was pleased. "Take," said he, "the finest horse from my stables, the richest saddle from my treasury, and the most splendid silk robe in the palace. Bring to me the man who wrote these letters." The courtiers laughed aloud until the emperor's eyes grew dark with wrath. Why do you mock my command? He thundered. Trembling, they bowed and stammered. O Majesty, forgive us. Those wondrous words were written not by a man, but by a monkey. A monkey? Cried the emperor. Can such art come from the paw of a beast? It is the truth, my lord, said one of them. We saw him write it with our own eyes. Amazed beyond measure, the emperor said, Then fetch this marvelous creature to me at once. The courtiers hastened back to the ship and repeated his words to the captain. He nodded gravely. The emperor's will must be done. So they dressed me in the shining robe, lifted me upon the royal horse, and led me through the city gates toward the palace. The streets overflowed with people, men and women, young and old, peering from windows, rooftops, and balconies. Rumor had flown before us. The emperor has chosen a monkey for his vizier. Everywhere I went, the crowd murmured in awe. At last, I entered the great hall. The emperor sat upon his throne, surrounded by lords and nobles whom he had summoned to witness the wonder. I bowed deeply, then knelt and touched my forehead to the floor before him. Rising again, I sat in the humble posture of my kind. A murmur of admiration filled the chamber. No one could comprehend how a mere beast could perform the gestures of respect so perfectly. The emperor dismissed the court, keeping only his chief eunuch, a young page, and me. He moved to his private chamber and ordered food to be brought. When he sat, he beckoned me to dine beside him. I bowed again, kissed the ground, and ate with quiet grace. As the meal ended, my eyes fell upon a writing desk nearby. I made a small motion toward it. It was brought, and I wrote upon a peach a few verses of gratitude for the emperor's kindness. When he read them, his astonishment deepened. Later, as a cup of rare drink was offered, I drank, and upon the cup itself I penned another poem, telling of my long journey and the strange turns of fate. The emperor gazed at the cup and said, No man alive could write with such soul. This creature surpasses even the wisest of men. He then called for a chessboard and gestured, asking if I knew the game. I touched my head to show assent. We played. The emperor won the first match, but I triumphed in the second and the third. Seeing his frown, I quickly composed a verse to ease his pride, of two mighty armies who fought all day and made peace by night, resting together upon the field. The emperor smiled, for he understood. Never before had he seen such grace and wit in any living being. He called to the chief eunuch, Bring my daughter, the princess of beauty. She too must behold this wonder with her own eyes. And so the tale unfolded. As moonlight streamed through the palace arches, and the stars kept watch above, the chief of the eunuchs departed, and in a short while returned to summon the princess. She entered with her face uncovered. Yet the moment she stepped into the chamber, she quickly lowered her veil across her features and spoke softly to the emperor. "Your Majesty, perhaps there has been some oversight. I am surprised that I have been called here in the presence of unfamiliar men." "My child," answered the emperor, "it is you who are mistaken. There is no stranger here, only your tutor, the chief eunuch, the little page, and your own father, those permitted to see your face. Yet you veil yourself, as though your father had committed some grave offense in asking you to appear." The princess bowed her head slightly and replied, "Your Majesty, I assure you I have not misunderstood. That creature you see there, though he appears to be but a monkey, is no animal by nature. He is a young prince, son of a great king, and his form has been twisted by dark enchantment. A malignant spirit, grandson of the dread Ebulus, cast this cruel spell after murdering the princess of Ebony Isle, the daughter of King Epitimerot." The emperor turned his gaze to me in astonishment. He no longer waited for any sign from others, but spoke directly to me. "Is what the princess has said true?" Unable to speak, I placed my hand upon my head to show that her words were indeed the truth. The emperor then asked the princess, "And how, my child, could you know that this unfortunate prince is under the power of sorcery?" The beautiful princess replied gently, "Your Majesty, surely you remember the old woman who cared for me when I was just past childhood. She was no ordinary nurse, but a wise enchantress. She taught me 70 secret arts. With them, I could, in but a blink, move your capital city into the midst of the ocean beyond the Caucasus Mountains. With them, I can see instantly who has been touched by magic, what fate binds them, and by whose hand they were so changed. So do not wonder that I recognized the prince, despite the disguise forced upon him." The emperor nodded slowly. "My daughter, I had never imagined your gifts to be so great. These wonders are best left hidden, Your Majesty," she answered softly. "For one must not boast of such things." "If all you say is true," said the emperor, "then surely you can break this enchantment and restore the prince to his rightful form?" "Yes, Your Majesty," she replied. "I can." "Then do so at once," the emperor exclaimed. "Nothing would please me more, for I wish to make him my grand vizier, and I shall give you to him as bride." The princess bowed. "As Your Majesty commands." She returned to her chamber and soon came forth again, carrying a slender blade etched with ancient Hebrew symbols. She led us into the courtyard behind the palace. She asked us to remain beneath the colonnade while she stepped alone into the open space. There, upon the ground, she drew a wide circle and traced upon it strange characters of Arabia and of old Egypt. When she had finished, she stepped to its very center, raised her eyes to the sky, and spoke sacred verses in a low and steady voice. At once, day darkened. The heavens shuddered as though the very frame of creation trembled. We were seized with fear. Then, from the heart of the circle, there rose the dread spirit, grandson of Eblis, shaped now as a monstrous lion. The princess rebuked him sharply. "Wretch, you dare appear before me in such hideous form? Do you think to frighten me? And you," roared the lion, "why do you break our sworn pact that neither should harm the other?" "It is you who are faithless," she answered. The lion snarled, "You shall pay dearly for summoning me." With a roar, he lunged. But the princess leapt back, drew a single hair from her head, whispered over it, and in her hand it became a shining sword. With a swift stroke, she cleaved the lion in two, but from the halves rose a scorpion. At once, the princess changed into a serpent, and they battled fiercely. Defeated, the scorpion became a great eagle and soared into the air. The serpent became a black hawk and pursued it. Both vanished from sight. Moments later, the earth split open before us. A striped cat burst forth, howling, and a dark wolf followed in furious chase. The cat turned into a tiny worm beside a fallen pomegranate. The worm burrowed into the fruit. The fruit swelled like a great gourd, rolled up the colonnade roof, and fell, shattering into 100 seeds. The wolf turned into a rooster and pecked frantically, swallowing the seeds one by one. Only one seed lay near the stream. As the rooster darted to seize it, the seed dropped into the water and became a small fish. The rooster leapt after it, becoming a great fish as well. They struggled beneath the water for 2 whole hours. Then came terrible cries, so dreadful that we trembled. A moment later, the spirit and the princess appeared again, both blazing like living fire. Flame met flame, smoke billowed upward, heat scorched the courtyard walls. We feared the palace would burn. Then the spirit broke free and rushed upon us, hurling coils of fire. We would surely have perished had the princess not cried out, forcing him back. Yet even so, she could not prevent the emperor's beard from being burned away, nor keep his face from being scorched. The chief eunuch was consumed instantly to ashes, and a spark struck my right eye, leaving me half blind forever. The emperor and I stood awaiting death, when suddenly a voice rang out, "Victory! Victory!" And then, all at once, the princess revealed her true form and stepped forward, while the wicked fiend lay in nothing but a heap of ash. The princess came near to us. Without wasting a moment, she called for a cup of water. The young slave untouched by the flames, brought it swiftly. She lifted the cup, whispered ancient words over it, and poured the water upon me, saying, "If you were changed into a monkey by the spell of dark love, then take now your rightful shape once more." She had scarcely spoken when I found myself restored, whole and human again, just as I had been before, save that one of my eyes was lost. I wished to give thanks to the princess, but she would not allow me the time. She turned instead to her father and said, "My father, I have vanquished the evil spirit, as you have seen. But this victory has been dearly bought. I shall not live long. You will not see me wed, nor stand beside me in joy, as you once dreamed. The fire of battle has entered me. Its flame consumes me even now. Had I only seen the very last pomegranate seed and swallowed it, as I did the others when I took the form of a rooster, I would have ended the demon completely and safely. That seed was his final refuge, but missing it forced me to fight with fire, to wrestle him between earth and sky, before your very eyes. His sorcery was dreadful, his knowledge deep, but I was stronger. I conquered him. I burned him to dust. Yet I cannot escape the death that follows. The emperor listened as his beautiful daughter spoke. When she finished, his voice trembled with sorrow. "My child, do you not see my grief? Alas, I wonder that I live at all. Your master is dead. The prince you freed has lost an eye. And you, my light, my joy, are slipping from me." He could speak no more. Tears and sighs broke his voice. The princess and I wept with him, but suddenly the princess cried out, "I burn, I burn." She felt the hidden fire take her entirely. Once more she cried, "I burn," and she fell. And the pain left her, for she was gone. Her body turned to ash swiftly, just as the fiend had before her. "Madame, I cannot tell you the depth of my sorrow. I would rather have remained a monkey or a dog all the days of my life than watch my savior perish so cruelly." As for the emperor, his grief was greater than any words. He beat his breast and tore at his hair until he fell senseless to the floor. And for a moment, I feared he too would die. The eunuchs and attendants rushed in, drawn by his cries. They saw the two heaps of ash, the demons and the princesses, and they understood all. The emperor could not stand. They supported him back to his chambers. Soon the tale spread beyond the palace. The whole city mourned the beautiful princess. They kept mourning for 7 days and held many rites. The demons' ashes were scattered to the winds, but the princesses were gathered into a precious vessel and placed within a fair mausoleum built upon the very spot. Grief laid the emperor low for a month, When at last he could speak, he summoned me. "Prince," he said, "hear my command and obey it, or lose your life. I have lived in happiness until now, untouched by misfortune. But you have brought sorrow into my house. My daughter is gone. Her teacher is dead. You have cost me all. I cannot keep you here. Go, leave this land forever, for your presence brings calamity. If ever you return, even love for you shall not stop my hand from punishing you. Go." I wished to answer, but he cut me off in anger. So I departed the palace, shunned and alone, with no friend and no home. I shaved my face and brows, put on a beggar's cloak, and wandered. I grieved not for myself, but for the two princesses whose fates were bound to mine. I traveled through many lands, hiding my name, until at last I resolved to come to Baghdad, hoping that the commander of the faithful might hear my tale and take pity on me. I arrived only this very evening, and the first man I met was the Dervish who has just spoken before me. And now, my lady, you know how I came to stand in your house tonight." When the second dervish finished his story, Lady Zubeida said, "Very well, you may stay, as the first has stayed." Then the third dervish, seeing his turn had come, bowed his head to Lady Zubeida and began his tale. The Tale of the Third Dervish, Son of a King. Most honored lady, the tale I am about to tell differs greatly from the ones you have just heard. The two princes who spoke before me each lost an eye through the workings of fate alone. But I lost mine through my own folly. It was by my own hand that misfortune found me, as you shall soon understand. My name is Agib, son of King Cassib. When my father passed from this world, I inherited his throne and his dominions. I dwelt in the royal city beside the sea, where the harbor lay broad and calm, famed for its safety and fine waters. There, great shipyards produced everything needed for 150 warships kept always ready, and for 50 merchant vessels, with as many pleasure craft for peaceful voyages beneath the open sky. My kingdom stretched over many fair cities and islands green and wide, close enough that from the palace terrace one could glimpse their shores glimmering in the distance. In the early days of my reign, I journeyed among my provinces, and afterward I equipped my fleet to visit the islands as well. I wished my people to see their king, to bind their hearts together, to encourage loyalty and peace. Those voyages stirred something deep within me, an eagerness for the sea, a longing for far-off places no map could name. So one day, I prepared a smaller expedition of only 10 ships, and with hopeful heart, we cast off For 40 days the winds were calm and faithful. But on the night of the 41st, a terrible gale rose. The wind roared like 1,000 wild beasts, and the waves lifted us as though to devour us whole. Yet at dawn the storm began to fade. The clouds drew apart, and sunlight glimmered on the waters. We found a small island and rested 2 days, regaining strength. Then, once more, we set sail. After 10 more days at sea, we believed we were nearing land. I had already ordered our fleet to turn homeward, for the storm had changed my plans. But when I examined the pilot's charts, I perceived confusion and dread in his eyes. He was lost. On the 11th day, I commanded a sailor to climb the mast and look far across the waters. He called down that to our left and right there was nothing but sea. Yet straight ahead there hung a vast black mass, as though the horizon itself had turned to stone. At that, our pilot turned pale. He tore off his headcloth and struck his face in despair. "Your Majesty," he cried, "we are doomed. That black shape is not a cloud nor a storm. It is the mountain of the magnet. Even now it draws us toward it, for all our ships are bound with iron. Tomorrow we shall be close enough that the nails will leap from our planks, torn free by the mountain's force. Our ships will fall apart, and we shall sink beneath the waves. This mountain has devoured countless fleets before us. Its cliffs are clad with the rusted nails of the drowned." And he wept. And when the crew saw him weep, they too began to weep, for all hope seemed lost. Dawn broke, and there the mountain stood, black and dreadful. We saw iron spikes and shattered chains fly from our vessels, drawn to that terrible rock with shrieking sound. The timbers split. The waves swallowed ships, men, and hope alike. All my companions perished, but by the mercy of heaven, I clung to a wooden plank and drifted until I reached the base of that grim mountain. There, carved into the stone, rose a narrow stairway. I climbed it, step by perilous step, until at last I reached a bronze-roofed tower atop the peak. Exhausted, I slept, and in my dream, a venerable old man stood before me and spoke. "Ajib, listen well. Beneath your feet lies a bronze bow and 3 arrows of lead. With these, you must strike down the bronze horseman who stands atop this tower. When he falls into the sea, the curse shall be broken. Then the waters will rise to the tower's height, and a small boat will come. In it will sit the one you have cast down. Enter the boat with him, and speak not the name of the Most High. For 10 days he will bear you to another sea, where you may find safe return. But remember, speak no holy name along the way. When I awoke, I did all as the vision commanded. On the third arrow, the bronze horseman toppled into the deep. The seas rose. A small vessel appeared. The bronze figure guided it to me, just as foretold. I boarded silently. For 9 days we traveled. Islands came into view, green, living, welcoming. And joy welled up within me. And in my joy, I forgot. I lifted my hands and cried aloud, "Praise be to the Most High. Thanks be to God." The moment I spoke the forbidden words, the tale continues. I had scarcely finished speaking when the ship sank to the very floor of the sea, dragging the bronze man down with it. I alone floated upon the open water. All that long day, I swam toward what I believed to be the nearest shore. Then night fell, deep, heavy, and without a single star. I no longer knew where I was. I simply continued to swim, though my strength was fading. At last, when all hope had left me and my limbs could barely move, a strong wind rose upon the sea. A towering wave, high as a mountain, lifted me upon its crest and cast me onto a stretch of sand. Then the wave retreated, leaving me lying there, weak but alive. Fearing that the next wave might pull me back into the sea, I stumbled inland as quickly as I could. The first thing I did was remove my clothes and wring the water from them. I spread them upon the warm sand, still holding the day's heat, to dry. The sun of the next morning soon dried them completely. I dressed myself and walked further into the island, wondering where fate had brought me. In a short while, I discovered that I had landed upon a lovely, though lonely, island, rich with wild trees and fruit-bearing branches. Yet it lay far from any mainland. The joy of my escape softened at once into a quiet sorrow. Still, I entrusted my fate to heaven, believing that the Most High would guide what was to come. And indeed, as I gazed toward the sea, I saw a small ship sailing swiftly from the mainland toward the island. I felt sure it would cast anchor here, yet I did not know whether those aboard were friend or foe. So I hid myself. I climbed into the thick branches of a great tree, from which I could watch them without being seen. The ship entered a narrow inlet. 10 slaves came ashore, carrying shovels and tools. They walked to the center of the island. I watched as they dug for a time, then lifted a hidden stone door. They returned to the ship and brought food, bedding, and furnishings, each man carrying something down into the opening. I understood then that there was a chamber below the earth. They returned once more, and this time they brought an old man and a handsome youth of perhaps 14 or 15. When they descended and shut the stone door once more, covering it carefully with sand, I saw that the young man did not return with them. The ship raised its sails and departed for the mainland. When it had gone far enough that none aboard could see me, I came down from the tree and hurried to the place they had dug. I cleared the sand until I uncovered a square stone, 2 or 3 feet each way. I lifted it, and there beneath lay a stairway of stone. I descended and found myself in a chamber carpeted with fine rugs. Upon a couch lay another richly woven cloth and soft cushions. The young man sat there with a fan in his hand. Fruit and flowers lay beside him, and 2 candles cast a gentle light. He was startled when he saw me, but I spoke at once. "Do not be afraid, my lord. Whoever you may be, I mean you no harm. I myself am the son of a king, and I believe that heaven has guided me here to save you from a living tomb into which you have been placed. Yet, what astonishes me most," I added softly, "is that you seemed to offer no resistance to such a fate." Hearing this, his fear melted into a gentle smile, and he invited me to sit beside him. When I had done so, he began to speak. "My father is a wealthy merchant, dealing in jewels and precious gold. He owns many ships and many servants who travel far across the seas. Yet, though he had longed for a child for many years, none came to my parents. Then one night, he dreamed that a son would be born to him. Yet that son would not live long. This dream brought him great sorrow, but soon after, my mother found that she was with child. In due time, I was born, and the whole household rejoiced. My father consulted the astrologers. They said, 'The child shall live in peace until his 15th year. But in that year, a great danger shall fall upon him, and it is unlikely he will survive it. Yet, if he does endure, he will live to great age. For in that very year, the bronze horseman on the summit of the mountain of the magnet shall be cast into the sea by Prince Agib, son of King Kasib. And 50 days after this, the son of the merchant shall be slain by that same prince.' These words struck my father to the heart, for they matched his dream. And though he raised me with great care and love, this fear never left him. Yesterday, news came that the bronze horseman had indeed been thrown into the sea. 10 days passed. Since that moment, my father has wept without ceasing. According to the prophecy of the astrologers, my father sought to deceive the star that governed my fate, so that I might be spared from death. Long ago, he quietly had this hidden dwelling built. Should the statue ever be overturned, so he could bring me here and shelter me for 50 days. And so, when news came 10 days ago that the statue had indeed fallen, he hurried to hide me in this place, promising to return for me in 40 days' time. As for me, the young boy continued. I could not believe that Prince Agib would ever search for me beneath the very earth on a lonely island such as this. And, my lord, that is all I can tell you. While the son of the jeweler told his tale, I inwardly laughed at those astrologers who had foretold that I would slay him. I felt certain such a fate would never come to pass. For when he finished speaking, I said at once, with heartfelt warmth, my dear friend, trust in the mercy of the Almighty and fear nothing. Think of this matter as a debt long owed. And now, at last, fully paid, I am grateful that, after my shipwreck, I have arrived here in time to protect you from those who would harm you. I shall not leave your side for the 40 days you have feared so deeply. I shall help you with whatever tasks I can. And when the days are done, I shall return to the mainland aboard your father's ship, if both you and he grant permission. When I reach my homeland, I shall never forget your kindness. I will show my gratitude in every way I am able. These words comforted him greatly. I did not reveal that I was Prince Agib, the very one he feared. And I guarded my speech carefully so that not even a shadow of suspicion might fall upon me. We talked long into the night. I found the youth clever and gentle of heart. We shared the provisions stored in the underground chamber. He had brought so much that it could have fed many guests, not merely the two of us, for 40 days and more. After supper, we spoke a while more, then lay down to sleep. The next morning, when he awoke, I brought him water to wash. I prepared the meals, and after we ate, I invented little games and small diversions to fill the hours of the day and the days that followed. Evening came. We supped. We slept. So it went, day after day, and over time, affection grew between us. He came to hold me dear, and I, in turn, loved him like a brother. Many times, I said to myself that the astrologers who warned his father that his son would die by my hand were nothing but deceivers. For how could I ever bring harm to one whom I cherished so deeply? So, dear lady, the two of us lived most peacefully together for 39 days beneath the earth. Then came the 40th day. At dawn, he awoke with joy in his voice. My lord, today is the 40th day, and I am alive. Praise be to the Most High, and thanks to you, my friend. Soon my father shall return, and he will thank you, and provide you with all that you need to sail home in comfort. But while we wait, he added, smiling, may I trouble you to heat some water and pour it into my bath? I wish to wash and dress myself properly to welcome my father. I placed water on the fire, warmed it, filled the bath, and with my own hands washed and tended to him. When he had finished bathing, he lay upon the bed I had prepared. I covered him with blankets. After resting a while, he said, "My lord, would you bring me a watermelon and some sugar? I would like something cool and sweet." I chose the finest melon among those that remained and set it upon a dish. Not seeing a knife, I asked if he knew where it was kept. "There is one," he said, "at the top of that pillar, just there." And indeed, I saw it. But in my haste, as I took the knife in hand, my foot caught upon the blanket. I stumbled forward, and, oh cruel fate, I fell upon him. The blade struck his heart, and he died in that very instant. At the sight, I cried out in horror. I struck my head and my breast, tore my garments, and rolled upon the earth in grief beyond telling. "Alas," I cried, "only a few hours more, and he would have been safe. And I who loved him, have become the hand that fulfilled the prophecy. O Lord, forgive me. If I am the cause of his death, then do not let me live beyond this hour." Yet death does not come when we call it, nor life remain when we beg it to stay. At last, seeing that tears could not bring him back, and fearing his father's return at the end of the 40 days, I rose from that sorrowful place. I closed the entrance, lowered the stone, and covered it over with earth, and thus ended the fate that heaven had long foretold. Having just finished that task, I looked out to the sea toward the mainland and saw the ship coming to fetch the young lad. I pondered what to do, and then told myself, if I reveal myself, surely the old man will have the slaves seize and kill me at the very moment he sees his son's condition. No matter how I might plead my innocence, he would not believe me. Better to stay hidden than to offer myself to his wrath. Near the underground chamber stood a large tree, its branches thick and sheltering. I saw that I might hide there. Climbing up, I fumbled until I found a place safe from view. At that very moment, the ship docked precisely where it had the day before. The old man and his slaves disembarked immediately and made their way to the chamber, their gait betraying a faint hope. But when they saw the freshly turned earth, all color drained from their faces, especially the old man's. They lifted the stone slab and descended. They called out the young man's name. No reply came. Their fear grew with each passing moment. They searched, and there he lay upon the bed, a knife driven into the center of his heart, because I had not had the courage to withdraw it. At the sight, they cried out in anguish. Their cries stirred the pain within me as well. The old man fell unconscious. To give him air, the slaves carried him out of the chamber and laid him beneath the very tree where I was hiding. Though cared for, the poor father remained insensible for a long while, so much so that the slaves feared he might not survive. Yet eventually, he regained consciousness after his prolonged faint. Then the slaves brought forth the young man's body, clothed in his finest garments. They dug the grave, lowered the coffin, and the old man, tears streaming, guided by 2 slaves, cast the first handfuls of earth before the rest of the slaves filled the grave. With this sorrowful duty done, they carried the remaining furniture and food from the chamber up to the ship. The old man, too grief-stricken to stand, was placed upon a makeshift stretcher and carried aboard. The ship raised its sails and soon vanished beyond my sight. On the desolate island, I was left alone. Nightfall found me sleeping in the uncovered chamber. By day, I wandered the island. Whenever fatigue overcame me, I rested in the cleanest spots I could find. I endured this lonely life for a month. Then I noticed the sea had receded considerably, and the island stretched farther. It seemed the mainland had drawn nearer. Indeed, the water withdrew until only a narrow channel separated me from the land. I waded across, the water reaching only halfway up my calves. I trudged along the sand for a long time, weary. At last, I reached firmer ground, walking far from the shoreline. And in the distance, I thought I saw a great fire. This lifted my spirits slightly. Perhaps I might find someone, for surely the fire could not burn itself. Yet, as I approached, I realized my mistake. What I had mistaken for fire was in fact a magnificent copper castle, its bronze walls gleaming in the sun, making it appear aflame from afar. I stopped near the castle and sat down, both to admire its wondrous structure and to regain some strength. Before I could examine it thoroughly, 10 handsome young men appeared, returning from a stroll. Oddly, each had lost sight in their right eye. They were accompanied by a tall, venerable old man who seemed worthy of respect. I marveled at the sight. 10 youths, all blinded in the same eye. As I pondered this strange assembly, they drew near and greeted me warmly. After the initial salutations, they asked why I had come. I told them my story and requested that they sit, so I might fully recount what had befallen me since leaving my homeland. They seated themselves, and I spoke at length. They listened with astonishment to all I had endured. When I finished, the young men invited me into the castle. I accepted. We passed through numerous outer halls, waiting rooms, private chambers, and offices, all immaculate, until we reached a grand audience room. There were 10 small green stools arranged in a circle for daytime resting and nightly sleep. At the center sat an 11th, lower than the others. The old man I had mentioned took the central stool, while the youths sat upon the outer ones. As each stool could hold only one person, one of the young men said to me, "You shall sit upon the central mat." and ask nothing of us. Do not inquire why each of us has lost the sight of one eye. Be content to look, and no more. The old man did not sit idle for long. He rose and left, returning shortly with the evening meal for the 10 young men. He portioned the food for each and gave me a serving as well. I, like the others, ate in quiet solitude. At the end of the meal, the old man brought each a cup of wine. My tale had so captured them that they requested I recount it again. My story became the subject of discussion for most of the night. As the hour grew late, one of the youths reminded the old man, "It is time for sleep, yet you have not brought us what we need to fulfill our duties." Upon hearing this, the old man rose and fetched 10 basins, each covered with green cloth, placing one before each youth, along with a torch. They opened the basins, and inside were ashes, soot, charcoal, and fine gray dust. They mixed it all together with their hands, and then began to smear it upon their faces, darkening their features until they appeared dreadful to behold. When their faces were fully blackened, they sat down upon the floor and began to weep, beating their chests and striking their heads, crying out again and again, "This is the punishment for our idleness and reckless pleasures." Dear madam, you can surely imagine the unease and confusion that weighed upon my heart in those moments. More than once, I wished to break the silence they had ordered me to keep, to question them, to understand. But I did not dare. That night, I could not sleep at all. The next morning, when we stepped outside to breathe the cool daylight air, I could bear it no longer. I said to them, "Most noble sirs, I must declare that I will no longer submit to the rule you set upon me yesterday. I refuse now to obey it. You are men of great wisdom and fine understanding. That much is clear. And yet I witness you doing things that no sound-minded person would ever do. Whatever fate may come to me for speaking, I cannot remain silent. Why do you blacken your faces with ashes and soot? And why, each one of you, possesses only a single eye? There must be a strange and hidden cause. I beg you, tell me the truth of it." Yet for all my pleading, they answered only this: "That which you ask has nothing to do with you. You gain no good from knowing it. Be still and rest." And so the days continued. By daylight, we spoke of small matters and harmless things. But each night, when our suppers were finished, the old man would return with the green basins, and the young men would again blacken their faces, strike their brows and chests, and cry aloud, "This is the punishment for our idleness and reckless pleasures." And the next day, and the day after that, and all the days that followed, they did the very same. At last, No longer able to restrain my curiosity, I spoke to them with great seriousness. I begged them either to tell me the truth or to show me the road by which I might return to my own homeland. For I could not remain among them forever. Night after night, witnessing a mystery I was forbidden to understand. One of the young men, speaking for the others, said, "Be not surprised by our conduct toward you. If we have not answered your questions until now, it has only been from friendship, and because we wished to spare you from the sorrow that has befallen us. If you wish to share in our fate, our misfortune, you need only say so. We will not refuse you." I answered that I was ready for any hardship, but the young man shook his head and said, "Once more, we beg you, do not let curiosity rule your heart. It will cost you your right eye." "That matters not," I replied. "And if such misfortune should come, I will not blame any of you, but only myself." He told me that if my eye were taken, I could not stay among them afterward, even should I desire it, for their number could not be increased. I said that nothing would please me more than to live forever among such noble-hearted companions. But if parting was necessary, I would accept it, so long as they granted me the knowledge I sought. Seeing that my resolve could not be moved, the 10 young men took a sheep and slaughtered it. When they had flayed the skin, they gave me the knife they had just used and said, "Take this knife. Soon it will serve you well. We shall sew you within this sheepskin and leave you here. Then a great bird, the mighty eagle, will descend from the sky. Thinking you a sheep, it will seize you in its talons and carry you high, higher than the clouds. Do not be afraid. When it sets you down upon the summit of a far mountain, use the knife to cut your way free. The eagle, seeing you, will be frightened and fly away. Then you must walk, and do not turn back until you come to a wondrous castle, shining with gold, brocade, jasper, and precious stones. Its gate will stand open. Enter without fear. All of us have been there. We shall not tell you what we saw, nor what befell us. You will learn it for yourself. Only know that each of us paid for that knowledge with the loss of his right eye. And the punishment you have seen us bear each night, we endure it because of what happened in that castle. Each of us carries enough adventures to fill a great book, but we may say no more. Madam, when the one-eyed youth had finished his tale, I at once placed myself inside the sheepskin, holding the knife in my hand. They stitched the hide shut and returned to their hall. Soon the great eagle came. It swooped down, seized me as it would seize a lamb, and bore me up to the high places of the world, and set me down upon a mountain peak. I cut the hide and stepped forth. The eagle, snow white and monstrous in strength, strong enough, they say, to carry an elephant from the plains to the peaks, flew off at the sight of me. Eager to reach the castle, I lost no time. I walked swiftly, and before half a day had passed, I saw it, more glorious than any words had promised. The great gate stood open. I crossed a vast courtyard, surrounded by 99 doors of sandalwood and aloes wood, and one more of pure gold. Behind them lay gardens, treasuries, laden with wonders, and chambers whose marvels were beyond counting. I entered a hall, and there, seated together, were 40 maidens, each one fair beyond imagining, clothed in splendor. When they saw me, they rose as one and cried, "Welcome, welcome, noble traveler." One, speaking for them all, said, "We have long awaited a man such as you. Your bearing shows us your worth. We hope you will not consider our presence unworthy of you." Though I protested, they seated me upon a place of honor. "You are our Lord," they said gently, "our King, our Master, our Judge. We are your servants." Never have I seen such eagerness to serve. One brought warm water to bathe my feet. Another poured fragrant oils upon my hands. Some dressed me in garments of the softest weave. Others laid before me a feast of delicate foods and rare wine. And all was done with such grace that my heart was enchanted. After I had eaten and drunk, they gathered close, asking me to tell of my journey. I told them all, and the tale carried us into the evening. When night grew deep, they brought out candles, so many that their light shone like day, and set fruits, sweets, and crystal flasks of wine upon the tables. Musicians played gentle airs. Pairs of maidens danced as lightly as drifting leaves. After midnight, the celebrations ceased. The maiden who had spoken before said softly, "You are weary. Your chamber is prepared. Only choose the one among us who shall keep you company tonight." I refused, for they were all equally gracious and beautiful. But she smiled and said, "Do not fear jealousy. We have long agreed that each of us will share such honor in turn, one each night, and after 40 days the circle begins again. So choose freely and rest." Thus, at last, I offered my hand to the maiden who had spoken for all the rest. She led me to a chamber of great beauty. The others withdrew to their rooms, and we were left alone. The next morning, just as I was dressing, 39 young ladies entered the chamber. Each of them wore different attire than the day before. They greeted me warmly and inquired after my health. Then they led me to the bathing room and though I tried to refuse, they washed me carefully with their own hands, tending to every need. Once I had bathed, they dressed me in another outfit, even more splendid than the one I had worn the day prior. Throughout the day, we mostly remained seated at the table. When the hour for sleep arrived, they asked me to choose a companion for the night. Dear reader, to spare you from endless repetition, let it suffice to say that I spent an entire year living among these 40 young women, sharing my nights with one each evening. During all that time, the pleasures of silk and velvet were unbroken by a single sorrow. At the end of the year, to my great surprise, one morning, the 40 maidens entered my room as if to visit and inquire after my health, as was their custom, but their cheeks were wet with tears. They came forward, one by one, embracing and kissing me, and tenderly saying, "Farewell, beloved prince, farewell. We must leave you now." Their tears moved me greatly, and I implored them to reveal the cause of their sorrow and the parting they spoke of. In the name of God, my beautiful ones, tell me, can I comfort you or help in any way? But they did not answer directly. Instead, they said, "If only we had never seen or known you. Before you came, many suitors visited us, yet none possessed the charm, gentleness, joy, and grace that you have." And with that, they wept bitterly. Once more, I asked again, "My dear ones, pray tell, why do you grieve?" "Oh," they replied, "what cause for sorrow could there be but that we must leave you? Perhaps we shall never see you again. Yet if you will it, and if you possess the strength of self-control for our sake, it may still be possible for us to meet again." "My dear ones," I answered, "I cannot understand your words. Please speak plainly." Then one of them explained, "To satisfy your curiosity, we will tell you plainly. We are all princesses, daughters of kings. We live together here in the delight you have witnessed. But each year, we must be absent for 40 days to attend to duties we are forbidden to disclose. The year has just ended, and today we must bid you farewell. This is why we grieve. Before leaving, we leave in your care all the keys, especially the key to the 100 doors, so that you may sate your curiosity and ease the loneliness of our absence. But for your happiness and the benefit of all, we warn you not to open the door of gold. If you do, you will never see us again. This very fear adds to our sorrow. We hope our counsel guides you, for it determines the peace and joy of your life. Should you fail to restrain your curiosity, you will bring great harm upon yourself. Therefore, we implore you, do not err, so that we may find solace and return to you after 40 days. Though we could take the golden key with us, doing so would insult a prince such as you, casting doubt on your discretion and self-control. Truly, the words of the beautiful princesses filled me with a deep sorrow. I thanked them for their wise counsel and promised to heed it. I could endure far greater trials, I assured them, if it meant I might spend the remaining days of my life with women of such rare virtue. The parting was tender and lingering. I embraced each of them in turn. Then they departed, leaving me alone in the grand castle. The pleasures of living among them, the sumptuous feasts, the music, and the diversions had kept me occupied all year, leaving no time nor desire to explore the wonders of this enchanted palace. I scarcely noticed the marvelous objects I passed daily. So captivated was I by their beauty and the single-minded devotion they showed in seeking to delight me. I was deeply grieved at their departure. Though they would be absent for only 40 days, it felt as though I faced a century without them. I promised myself to heed their advice and never open the golden door. Yet, since I was free to explore in other ways, I took the first of the keys arranged for the many doors. Opening the first door, I entered an orchard unlike any I had ever imagined. Nowhere else in the universe could compare. Perhaps even the jeweled gardens promised in paradise to the faithful might not surpass this. The symmetry, the cleanliness, the careful arrangement of the trees, and the countless varieties of luscious fruit pleased my eyes greatly. It must be noted that this wondrous garden was irrigated with remarkable skill. Small, symmetrical channels supplied ample water to trees producing leaves and flowers, lesser amounts to those bearing young fruit, and just enough to fully grown fruit awaiting ripening. Yet even so, the fruit was far larger than that of ordinary gardens. Channels supplied mature fruit with only enough moisture to prevent spoilage. I gazed endlessly, enchanted by such beauty. Reluctantly, I opened the next door. This time, it revealed a garden of flowers, no less extraordinary. Each flower bed received water with even greater care, just enough for each species without excess. Roses, jasmine, lilies, daffodils, orchids, peonies, carnations, flowers that elsewhere would bloom only seasonally, all blossomed at once here. Breathing the air in this garden was pure delight. The third door opened to a vast aviary. The marble floor gleamed with every imaginable hue, the rarest and most precious stones. Bird cages of sandalwood and agar wood contained nightingales, orioles, canaries, larks, and countless other songbirds whose melodies I had never before heard. feed, and water containers were of veined marble and the finest agate. The aviary was spotless, surely maintained by no fewer than 100 caretakers. Yet no human was in sight. In the gardens, not a single weed or stray object marred the perfection of what I saw. The sun had set. I stepped out of the house, my heart still enchanted by the chirping of countless flowers and birds, all competing for the most convenient perches to rest for the night. I returned to my private chamber, intending in the days to come to open every single door, except the 100th one. The next day, I went to open the 4th door. If what I had seen the day before had caused me surprise, then what lay before me today filled me with wonder. I stepped into a vast courtyard before a building of such exquisite architecture that I shall not describe it to you, dear lady, so as not to tire you with too much detail. The building had 40 doors, all wide open, each leading to a treasure. Among them were treasures more valuable than those of the mightiest kingdoms. The first held heaps of jewels. Unbelievably, the largest and rarest stones, larger than a dove's egg, were more numerous than the ordinary ones. The second treasure chamber contained diamonds, rubies, and amethysts. The third held emeralds. The fourth, ingots of gold and silver. The fifth, copper coins. The sixth, silver ingots. The next 2 chambers contained coins of every sort. Other rooms held amethysts, sapphires, topaz, cat's eye stones, lapis lazuli, agate, and all the other precious stones known to man, not to mention jasper, white, and red onyx. One chamber contained entire coral trees, not merely branches, all stacked to the ceiling. Amazed and awed, I exclaimed, having gazed upon all these treasures, "No, even if all the treasures of all the kings of the world were gathered in one place, they could not compare to these riches. How fortunate I am to possess all of this wealth, along with so many lovely princesses. Dear lady, I shall not stop to recount in detail all the rare and precious things I saw in the days that followed. Suffice it to say, it took no fewer than 39 days to open the 99 doors and marvel at all that was displayed before me. Only the 100th door remained, forbidden to open. 40 days had passed since the beautiful princesses departed. On that day, had I possessed the fortitude to restrain myself, I would have been the happiest man alive, instead of the most wretched. Only 1 day remained before the princesses returned. The joy of seeing them again should have tempered my curiosity. Yet, driven by a weakness I shall never cease to regret, I fell under the spell of the infernal charm that left me no peace, forcing me to tread the path of suffering I was destined to endure. I opened the fateful door I had sworn never to open. As I stepped forward, A fragrance, pleasant but ill-suited to my nature, overwhelmed me, and I fell unconscious. Yet I revived. I should have heeded this warning, closed the door, and never again yielded to curiosity. But still I advanced, after waiting a while for the air to disperse the scent. By then, it no longer troubled me. This room was vast, with a vaulted ceiling and a floor scattered with turmeric. Numerous golden torches held burning candles that gave forth the scent of frankincense and musk. Their light was enhanced by golden and silver candles, their oils infused with every kind of fragrant resin. Among the many objects that caught my attention, I beheld the most beautiful black horse, perfect beyond any seen before. I drew close to examine it. It bore a saddle and bridle of solid gold, intricately engraved. Its manger held barley and sesame on one side, and rosewater on the other. I took its reins to lead it outdoors. I mounted, intending to urge it forward. It did not move. I took up a soft whip I found in the splendid stable and struck it. At the slightest touch, it let out a terrifying neigh. Then, spreading wings I had not seen before, it soared high into the sky. I clung tightly, terrified, yet managing the ride. The horse descended again, landing on the roof of a castle. Before my feet could touch the ground, it leapt, throwing me violently to the ground. Its tail struck my right eye, leaving me blinded in that eye. Thus I became one-eyed, dear lady. I recalled clearly what the 10 young men had said to me before. The horse flew again, vanishing into the sky. I rose, grief-stricken for the disaster I had brought upon myself. I walked across the roof, holding my wounded eye, and entered a hall with 10 pedestals arranged in a circle, one lower than the rest. I recognized it at once. The very castle from which the eagle had once carried me away. The 10 one-eyed youths were absent. After a while, they arrived with the old man, showing no surprise at seeing me again, even with one eye gone. They said, "We regret that we cannot welcome you back as we would wish, but we are not the cause of your misfortune." "I would be wrong to blame you," I replied. "I have brought this calamity upon myself. I accept all responsibility. If the comfort of the afflicted is to find others like themselves," they said, "then perhaps our example may offer you some solace. What has happened to you has happened to us. We enjoyed every pleasure for a full year, and might have continued had we not succumbed to curiosity, opening the golden door in the absence of the princesses. You were no wiser than we. You share our punishment. We would have welcomed you to stay and share in this trial, the length of which we do not know. But you understand the reasons why that cannot be. Therefore, go to the court at Baghdad. There, the ruler will decide your fate. They showed me the way, and I bid them farewell. Along the road, I had my beard and eyebrows trimmed and dressed in the garb of a mendicant. I walked for a long time until I arrived at this city. At the city gate, I met my fellow mendicants, my brothers, all astonished to see me with only one eye. But we had no time to speak of our shared misfortune. We had only enough time to request shelter for the night, which you so generously granted. The third mendicant finished his tale, and Zubeida addressed him and his two companions. Go, all three of you are free. Go wherever you wish. But one of the three replied, Madam, forgive our curiosity and allow us to hear the story that this gentleman has yet to tell. At this, the young lady turned to the emperor, the vizier Ja'afar, and Marua, whom she had not yet recognized, and said, It is your turn to tell your story. Speak. The vizier Ja'afar, as usual the spokesman, replied to Zubeida, Madam, obeying your command, we shall repeat what we said before entering the inn. We are merchants from Mutchun. We came to Baghdad to sell goods currently stored in a warehouse where we lodge. Today, we dined with many colleagues at the house of a merchant in this city. After treating us to fine food and exquisite wines, he summoned dancers, singers, and musicians. The noise we caused drew the city watch, who took some of the party. We fortunately escaped, but it was late. The warehouse gates were closed, and we had nowhere to go. By chance, we passed this street and heard merriment within. This led us to knock at the door. Madam, we relate this to you, because you commanded us to do so. After hearing those words, Zubeida seemed hesitant, unsure of how to act. The mendicants noticed her hesitation and politely asked that she treat the three merchants of Mutsun as she had treated the three men before. She replied, Very well, I agree. I wish that all of you shall owe me equally. I will pardon you, but on one condition, that each of you leave this house immediately, and thereafter go wherever you desire. Zubeida spoke with a tone that left no room for disobedience. The emperor, the vizier, Marua, the three mendicants, and the porter all departed without argument, for the presence of 7 armed slaves compelled respect. Once they had left, and the gate had been shut, the emperor, concealing his identity, turned to the mendicants and asked, You are strangers newly arrived in this city. It is still dark, and I wonder, which way do you intend to go? Your Majesty, they replied, that is precisely what confounds us. Come with us, the emperor said. We shall guide you out of this difficulty. With that, the king whispered to the vizier, Take them to your house, and at the first light of morning, bring them to me. I wish to record their story. Such events are worthy of being chronicled in the annals of my reign. The vizier, Ja'afar, led the three mendicants away. while the porter returned home. And the emperor, accompanied by Marua, returned to the palace. Though he lay down to rest, sleep would not come. His mind whirled with the strange and wondrous happenings he had witnessed. Above all, the emperor was eager to learn the identity of Zubeida. Why had she mistreated the two black dogs? Why were Amin's breasts scarred? Until the dawn, the emperor pondered these questions, rising at last to summon the court. The emperor seated himself upon the throne. Soon after, the vizier arrived, offering the customary greetings. The emperor spoke. "Vizier, the matters we attend today are of little urgency. Greater still are the affairs concerning the three young ladies and the two black dogs. My mind will not be at ease until I know fully the stories that astonish me so. Go, summon them here, and bring with you the three mendicants. Go now, and remember that I await your swift return." Knowing well the king's stern and impetuous nature, the vizier hurriedly obeyed. He visited the young ladies, conveying plainly the emperor's command to appear before him. Yet he spoke nothing of the previous night's occurrences in their house. The three young ladies donned their veils and followed the vizier. He then called for the three mendicants, who had already been informed that they would meet the emperor, unaware that they had spoken with him before. The vizier guided them all into the palace, completing his task swiftly, pleasing the emperor. To maintain decorum before the assembled court, the king allowed the three young ladies to stand behind a curtain at the doorway leading to the inner chambers, while the three mendicants stood beside him. The men dared not show disrespect, knowing before whom they now stood. The young ladies took their place, and the emperor turned to them. "Ladies, when I tell you that last night I disguised myself as a merchant and came to your house, you may have been afraid. You might think that I summon you now to exact revenge for any offense done to me. But be assured, I have forgotten all that has passed. Indeed, I am pleased with your conduct and shall remember always your composure when faced with such rudeness. Last night, I was a merchant of Mutsun, but now I am Harun al-Rashid, the fifth emperor of the illustrious Abbasid dynasty, ruling in place of our great prophet. Why did each of you, after striking and tormenting the two black dogs, weep with them? And I wish to know why one of you bears scars upon her chest." Although the emperor spoke clearly, and the three young ladies heard every word, the vizier Giafa, maintaining solemnity, dutifully repeated the emperor's message according to court protocol. Having spoken, Zubeida obeyed. To satisfy the emperor's request, she began to relate her tale as follows. The Tale of Princess Zubeida, Your Majesty, Commander of the Faithful, The tale I am about to relate to you is one of the strangest ever told, so strange that none before have heard of it. The two black female dogs and I are sisters, born of the same father and mother, and I will recount how, by a most curious accident, they were transformed into these hounds. The two other women who dwell by the river with me, and who are present here now, are also my sisters, but by a different mother. The one whose chest bears many scars is named Amin. The other is Zafi, and I am Zobit. After our father passed away, the inheritance he left was divided equally among us. These two sisters, having received their share, bade me farewell and returned to live with their own mother. The two of them and I remained with my mother. Later, when she too passed, she left each of us 1,000 scankins. Once we had claimed our portions, my elder sisters married. They went to live with their husbands, while I remained behind, alone. After a short while, my eldest sister's husband sold all their possessions, and, together with my sister's dowry, they sailed to Africa. There, he squandered everything on drink and frivolity. His wealth spent on wine and women until nothing remained, neither his own nor my sister's. When he found himself ruined, he contrived an excuse to cast her out, sending her away. My sister returned to Baghdad, weary and battered from that long journey. She sought refuge in my home, in a state so wretched it would have moved the hardest heart to pity. I welcomed her with all the love she could hope for. I asked how she had fallen into such misery. Between tears, she told me of her husband's cruelty and his vile ways, and I wept alongside her for her misfortune. Together, we shared our sorrow. Afterwards, I bathed her, dressed her in my clean clothes, and said, "Dear sister, as the eldest, you are like a mother to me. During your absence, I have used the small inheritance I received to raise silkworms and spin silk with heaven's blessing. Consider all my possessions as yours. Use them as you wish." For many months, the two of us lived in harmony, often speaking of our second sister, puzzled by the lack of news from her. One day, she returned, in the same miserable state as our eldest sister once was. Her husband, too, had treated her cruelly, and I welcomed her with the same tender care as before. Not long after, my two sisters expressed their wish to marry again, claiming they did not wish to burden me with expenses. I replied, "If your only concern is sparing me cost, then rest assured, my inheritance is enough for the three of us to live a decent life." I added, "Yet I fear your hearts are set on marrying again. After such unhappy experiences, how can you even consider it? Truly faithful husbands are hard to find. Trust me. Let us continue to live together in peace." But my words were in vain. Their minds were made up, and they pursued their plans. Several months later, they returned to me, full of apologies for not heeding my counsel. "Though you are the youngest," they said, "you are wiser than we. If you will receive us into your home once more and treat us as your servants, we shall not repeat the same mistake." "Beloved sisters," I said, "from the moment we parted until now, my heart has not changed. Come back, share with me all that I possess." I embraced them, and once more we lived together as before. A year passed in complete harmony. And then I desired a sea voyage to enter the world of commerce. By heaven's grace, my fortune had grown. With this purpose, I and my sisters traveled to Banzora to purchase a fully equipped ship, stocked with goods to carry from Baghdad. We set sail, the wind favoring us, and soon we left the Persian Gulf behind. Out at sea, we steered toward India. After 20 days, land appeared. A high mountain crowned a city, beautiful even from afar. The wind carried us to the harbor early, and we anchored. Impatient to wait for my sisters to prepare, I went ashore alone, straight into the city. There, I saw crowds of people seated and standing, each holding a staff. Their faces were so hideous, I was terrified. Yet they remained utterly still. As I approached, I saw that all were turned to stone. I wandered through the city streets, passing many figures frozen in mid-action. In the merchants' quarter, most shops were closed, their owners likewise petrified. Looking up at the chimneys, no smoke rose, and I realized that both within and without, all things had been turned to stone. I came upon a wide square in the very heart of the city, and there I saw a great gate, gilded with sheets of pure gold, its 2 doors standing open. Before it hung a silk curtain, trailing softly to the ground. Above the doorway swung a single lamp. As I gazed at the building, I was certain it must be the palace of the king who ruled this land. Yet, to my great astonishment, there was not a living soul to be seen. I approached, hoping perhaps to encounter someone, anyone. I lifted the curtain, and what I saw made my surprise grow even greater. Before the palace, only a few guards or attendants stood, some upright, some seated, some half lying. Yet all had been turned to stone. I passed into a broad courtyard, crowded with people frozen in motion. One seemed to be walking, another halting mid-step, yet no one stirred. All turned to stone, as those I had seen before. On I went, through a second courtyard, then a third. Everywhere the same dreadful stillness and silence reigned. In the fourth courtyard, I came upon a most beautiful building. Its window lattices cast in pure gold. I guessed it must be the queen's palace. Entering a chamber, I found many black attendants, all stone. I moved on to another room, richly adorned, where a woman too was turned to stone. I knew her to be the queen by the golden crown upon her head and the necklace of pearls, each round and large, strung about her neck. I gazed closely. No pearls I had ever seen could rival these in beauty. I lingered to admire the treasures and splendor of that chamber. The carpet, the cushioned pillows, the low couch covered in golden Indian fabric, embroidered with figures of men and beasts in silver threads, so intricate that it seemed a marvel of craftsmanship. From the queen's frozen chamber, I wandered into many other rooms, each clean and lavish, until I entered an unusually vast hall, where a throne of solid gold sat upon a raised dais, inlaid with large rubies. Above it lay a bed draped in sumptuous fabrics, glittering with jewels. Most wondrous of all, a dazzling light shone from the bed itself. Curious to see the source, I climbed up and peered. Upon a small stand rested a diamond the size of an ostrich egg, perfect, without a single flaw. Its brilliance was so great, I could scarcely bear to look upon it. At the head of the bed, on each side, stood torches burning bright, though their purpose was unclear. Yet, from the scene, I sensed that someone must still be alive in this splendid palace, for surely the torches did not light themselves, because all doors were ajar, or opened with the slightest push. I wandered through many more chambers, just as splendid. I explored kitchens, halls filled with tables and chairs, and rooms stacked with untold riches. I became so absorbed in these marvels that I forgot entirely my own purpose. Thoughts of the ship and my sisters slipped from my mind, replaced by the desire to satisfy my curiosity. But as night fell, I remembered I must return. I wished to retrace my steps along the route I had taken, yet I soon became lost amid the twisting halls. At last, I returned to the vast hall with the throne, the bed, the great diamond, and the burning torches. I decided to spend the night there, planning to return to the ship at first light. I lay upon the bed, uneasy, alone in such a silent place. Perhaps it was this unease that kept sleep from coming. Around midnight, I heard a voice softly reciting the words of the Quran in a tone most familiar, like that of the prayers in the mosques we know. My heart leapt with joy. Rising at once, I took a torch and followed the sound from room to room until I stopped before a door from which the voice surely came. I set down the torch and peered through a crack. The room resembled a place of worship. Indeed, as in our mosques, there was a stand for reading the sacred texts, many hanging lamps, and 2 candelabra bearing large white candles, all alight. I saw a small prayer rug laid carefully, as we do when we kneel to pray. A young man knelt upon it, reading the Quran from a small stand before him. Filled with admiration, I wondered how it could be that one soul alone remained alive in a city where all had been turned to stone. Surely, some great miracle had occurred. The door opened with the slightest push. I entered and stood at the lectern, raising my voice. Praise be to God, who has granted us a safe voyage. May He bless and protect us until we return to our homeland. May God hear and fulfill our prayers. The young man lifted his eyes and spoke. Madam, please tell me who you are and what has brought you to this desolate city. In return, I shall explain who I am, what has befallen me, why this city has fallen into such a state, and why I alone have been spared from the terrible destruction that has struck all others. I briefly told him of my journey, what had compelled me to undertake it, and how I had safely arrived after 20 days at sea. I then asked him, earnestly, to fulfill his promise, for I was deeply moved by the tragic sights I had encountered along the way. He said, "Dear lady, please wait a moment." He carefully closed the Quran, placed it in a precious bag, and set it aside. In that pause, I took note of him. He was handsome and gracious in a manner that stirred feelings within me I had never known. He invited me to sit beside him. I could not restrain myself from speaking, revealing the wonder he had awakened in me. "O beloved young man, never has anyone been more eager than I to understand the strange and marvelous sights I have seen since entering your city. I long for my curiosity to be satisfied. Pray, tell me by what miracle you survived, while so many others perished in such an extraordinary manner." The young man answered, "Madam, by your prayers just now, it is clear you know the true God. Soon you shall hear a tale that displays His majesty and power. This city is the capital of a mighty kingdom named for my father, the king. The king, all his court, and the people of this city, indeed all the land, worshipped the fire god and Nakhdun, once the lord of giant demons who rebelled against God. Though I was son to parents who followed a faith of idols, I was blessed in my childhood to have a gentle teacher, a devout woman of the true faith. She knew the Holy Quran by heart, and her voice, when she recited it, flowed like the soft rising of dawn. Often she would say to me, "My prince, remember this well. There is but one true God. Do not bow nor offer worship to any other. She taught me the letters of the Arabic tongue, and the first book placed in my small hands was the Holy Quran itself. As my mind grew, she guided me through its meaning, its wisdom, its quiet fire. Yet she taught me in secret, so that neither my father nor the others of his court would know. She has long returned to the mercy of the Almighty. But before she left this world, she gave me everything I needed to believe with a sure and steady heart. After her passing, I held fast to the truth she had taught me. I came to despise the false god Nakdun and the worship of fire, which my people held sacred. Then, a little more than 3 years ago, a voice, loud as thunder, yet clear as a bell, rang through the whole city. Every soul heard it. O people, turn away from Nakdun and the fire. Worship the one merciful God alone. That voice cried out for 3 full years, but not one person turned from their ways. And so, on the final day of the 3rd year, at the 4th hour before sunrise, judgment fell. In a single instant, every inhabitant of the city, every mother, every soldier, every child, was turned to stone, frozen in whatever act they were doing. My father, the king, was turned to a great black rock, which still stands within the palace walls. My mother, too, shared his fate. Only I was spared by the Most High. From that day onward, I worshipped him with all the devotion of my heart. And now, fair lady, I believe he has sent you to me to bring comfort to a soul who has lived alone among the dead. His story, and most of all, the tenderness of his final words, moved me deeply. I replied, "Prince, do not doubt it. It was the Almighty who led me to your harbor, who placed me in your path, and who now offers you escape. The ship on which I arrived lies waiting. I have wealth in Baghdad, and standing enough that I may speak for you before the commander of the faithful, the noble representative of the great prophet. Once he learns who you are, he will restore to you all honor and dignity. Let us not remain any longer in this sorrowful city. My ship is yours." The prince accepted. For the rest of the night, we spoke quietly of our departure. At first light, we left the palace together and went down to the harbor. There, my sisters, the captain, and the crew awaited me anxiously. I introduced my prince and told them all that had happened. The sailors began to unload what goods I had brought, and then, day after day, loaded aboard the treasures of the palace: ivory, silks, silver, and gold. So abundant were these riches that we could not carry them all, and much had to be left behind. Then we took water and provisions, and when the wind favored us, we set sail. The prince and I lived in peace, and would that peace had lasted, for envy grew in the hearts of my two sisters. They saw how the prince and I understood one another, how our affection deepened. One evening, with a sly smile, they asked what I intended to do with him when we reached Baghdad, sensing their jealousy, yet wishing to hide my joy. I answered lightly that I meant to wed him. Then, turning to the prince, I said, "My lord, will you consent? When we arrive, I would offer myself to you, not as your servant, but as your devoted wife." The prince bowed his head and replied, solemn as a vow, "Before your noble sisters, I declare, from this moment I accept. Not as mistress nor servant shall you be, but as my lady and my bride." At those words, the faces of my sisters changed, and from that moment, their hearts grew cold. We had entered the Persian Gulf and were but one day's sail from Bassorah. But that very night, while we slept, my sisters cast us into the sea. The prince drowned, but I, by fate or miracle, found my feet touching the sands of a small island. When morning broke, I saw that it was a lonely place, yet it held fruit and fresh water. I believed I could survive. As I rested in the shade, I saw something strange. A great winged serpent, struggling, wounded, and pursued by a larger serpent that had clamped onto its tail. Out of pity, my fear left me. I seized a stone and struck the larger serpent upon the head, killing it. The smaller one spread its wings and flew away. Free, I watched it disappear into the sky. And then, in the quiet warmth, I lay down beneath the trees, and sleep took me once more. Your Majesty, please imagine my astonishment upon waking to find, beside me, a black-skinned woman of keen yet kindly features, her hands holding the cords that bound two black female dogs. I sprang to my feet and asked who she was. She replied, "I am the serpent whom you recently freed from the clutches of my cruel enemy. I thought there could be no better way to repay your kindness than the deed I have just done. I know well the betrayal of your two sisters. To avenge you, immediately upon gaining my freedom through your help, I called my friends, all of them fairies, to my side. Together, we took all the goods from the ship and placed them safely in your storehouses at Baghdad. Then we sank the ship. Those two black female dogs are your sisters, whom I was forced to turn into dogs. Yet this punishment alone is not enough. I wish for you to treat them in the manner I shall soon tell you." With that, the fairy clasped me firmly under one arm, taking the two dogs in the other, and carried us swiftly back to our home in Baghdad. There, I saw that all the riches from the ship had been neatly stored in the warehouses. Before she departed, the fairy handed me the 2 black dogs and said, "By the authority of the Most High, I command you to strike each of your sisters 100 lashes every night, to punish them for the wrongs they wrought upon you and upon the young prince whom they drowned. Should you fail to follow my instructions, you too shall be transformed into a dog like them." I had no choice but to promise that I would obey her command. From that day forth, each evening, I was compelled, with great sorrow, to deal with my sisters in the manner your Majesty has now witnessed. With my tears, I sought to show them that I performed a cruel duty against my own heart, which was full of pain. Your Majesty can see that I was more pitiable than blameworthy. Should there be anything further concerning me that your Majesty wishes to understand, Amin will come forth to make all clear through her own story. After hearing the tale of Zubeida with admiration, the emperor, through his vizier, commanded Amin to explain the reason her body bore so many scars. And Amin, turning to the emperor, began to tell her story thus. The Tale of Aminah, O sovereign of the faithful, that I may not repeat what your Majesty has already heard from the tale my sister has told. I will begin at once. After my mother purchased a small house in which she might pass the days of her widowhood, she gave me in marriage to one of the wealthiest heirs of our city. She sent with me, as my dowry, all the inheritance my late father had left to me. We had been married less than a year when my husband passed away, leaving me the whole of his fortune, 99,000 sequins in gold. The interest of that sum alone was more than enough for me to live comfortably. Yet, when the 6 months of mourning had ended, I ordered 10 fine gowns to be made for me, each costing 1,000 sequins. And so, at the turn of the year, I began once more to dress with some elegance. One day, when I was at home alone, tending to my household affairs, I was told an old woman wished to speak with me. I gave her permission to enter. She was of great age. She bowed so low, her forehead touched the floor, then remained kneeling as she said, "Most noble lady, forgive me for coming uninvited. I dared to do so only because I trust in the kindness of your heart. I have a daughter, a poor orphan without a father. Today is her wedding day. We are strangers in this city and know no one here, and this troubles us greatly, for my son-in-law's family is large and proud. If only you would grant us the honor of your presence at the wedding. Their kin might see that we are not people of no standing, but that we too have dignity in this world. Lady of mercy, should you refuse us, we shall be left in shame. with no one else to turn to. As she spoke, tears streamed down her cheeks, and my heart was moved with pity. "Do not weep, mother," I told her gently. "I will do as you ask. Tell me only where I must go, and give me a little time to dress." Hearing this, the old woman's face lit with joy. She kissed my feet so quickly I could not prevent her. "Blessed lady," she cried, rising to her feet. "May heaven reward you for your golden heart. I shall return this evening to guide you there. Until then, I take my leave." When she had gone, I dressed myself in the finest of the gowns I possessed. I placed upon my neck a great string of pearls, and on my arms bracelets of gold, on my fingers rings, and in my ears diamonds clear as frozen dew. Something in my spirit whispered that a strange fate awaited me. When night had fallen, the old woman returned. She kissed my hand and said, "Most gracious lady, the women of my son-in-law's family, all of them ladies of rank, are now gathered and await you. If it pleases you, we shall depart." So we went, the old woman before me, and my maidens behind. We walked to a broad street, freshly swept and sprinkled with water, and stopped before a great gate lit with lanterns. Above it, letters of gold gleamed, "The House of Everlasting Delight and Joy." The old woman knocked. The gate opened at once. I was led into a wide hall at the far end of the courtyard, where a young woman of surpassing beauty came to greet me. She embraced me, seated me beside her upon a low couch, and spoke softly, "Lady, though you believe you have been invited to a wedding, I must tell you the truth. I have a brother, fairer and more gifted than any man alive. He has seen you, and his heart has been set aflame. He knows your rank, and I assure you, his own is in no way unworthy of you. I beg you, in his name and in mine, do not refuse him. Since the death of my husband, I had never thought to wed again. Yet the girl's beauty, her gentleness, the earnest tremor of her voice, I could not bring myself to deny her. I blushed and lowered my eyes. She understood at once and clapped her hands. A door opened. A young man stepped forth, so handsome, so gracious, that I felt as though fortune itself had chosen me. He sat beside me, and as we spoke, I found him even nobler and kinder than his sister had promised. Seeing that our hearts were turned toward one another, the girl clapped her hands again. A magistrate entered, prepared the marriage contract, signed it, and called 4 witnesses to sign in turn. My new husband asked only one thing of me, that I should never allow any man but him to see my face or speak with me. If I kept this one promise, he swore I would never have reason for sorrow. Thus our marriage was sealed, and though I had come as a guest, It was I who became the bride. A month passed. One morning, I needed to go to the market to buy cloth. And having been granted permission by my husband, I took with me the same old woman and 2 of my maidservants. In the street of the merchants, the old woman said, "Lady, I know of a young merchant who has the finest silks in the city. Let me take you to him, that you need not wander from shop to shop." I allowed her to lead us. The merchant was indeed handsome. I sat and asked through the old woman, for I was forbidden to speak to any man, to see his finest silks. Among them, I chose one I desired greatly. The old woman asked the price. The merchant replied, "I sell it not for gold nor for silver, but I will give it freely, if only she will allow me to kiss her cheek." I was angered and told the old woman to rebuke him for his insolence, but she instead whispered that such a small thing mattered little, a moment, a simple kiss, and then the silk would be mine. And I, foolish and eager for the cloth, allowed myself to be persuaded. My maids and the old woman stood before me, shielding me from view. I lifted my veil, but the merchant did not kiss me. He bit me, sharply, cruelly, until blood ran down my cheek. Pain and shock struck me like lightning. I fainted where I stood. When I awoke, I found my veil lowered once more, my face burning and wet with blood. The merchant had fled. The old woman, trembling with grief and shame, helped me home. "Forgive me, my lady," she wept. "This is my doing. But fear not, I shall give you medicine to heal the wound in 3 days, leaving no trace behind." But the faintness returned, and when I reached my room, I fell again to the floor. The old woman tended me, placing a salve upon my cheek, and at last I awoke and was laid gently in my bed. When night fell, my husband returned home. Seeing that my head was wrapped and my face hidden, he asked me gently what troubled me. I told him I suffered from a small ache, hoping he would ask no further. But he lifted a candle, and when its light touched my cheek, he saw the wound. Then he asked again, "How came this mark upon your face?" Though my fault had been small, I could not bring myself to speak the truth. I thought it shameful to confess such a matter before one's husband. So I said that while he had allowed me to go out and buy cloth, a wood carrier passed too closely in a narrow street. A tool he carried grazed my face, and so the wound was made. Yet it was nothing serious. These words stirred anger in my husband. He said, "Such insolence cannot go unpunished. Tomorrow I shall order the chief of the guard to seize all those ruffian porters and hang them all." Terrified at the thought that innocent men might die because of me, I begged him, "My lord, I would be sorrowful indeed if such wrong were done. I should never forgive myself if harm came to others on my account." Then he said sternly, "Speak truthfully then. How did you receive the wound?" I tried another explanation, saying that a broom seller upon a donkey had struck me by accident, causing me to fall and cut my cheek upon broken glass. But my husband replied, "If this is so, then before sunrise the vizier of Jaffa shall be informed, and all broom sellers shall meet their punishment." "In the name of the Most High," I cried, "forgive them, they are not to blame." At this, his voice rose high. "What is this then, woman? Which of your words is true? Speak. I will hear nothing but the truth." At last, with no answer left, I whispered, "My lord." I grew dizzy and simply fell. That is all. Now his patience was spent. "Ah," he cried, "I have heard enough falsehoods." He clapped his hands. 3 slaves entered. "Take her," he said, "and stretch her out in the middle of the room." They obeyed. One held my head, another my feet, while a third fetched a sword. My husband commanded, "Strike, cut her in 2, and cast her body into the river Tigris for the fish to feed upon. Such is the fate of those whom I cherish, and who repay my love with betrayal." One slave hesitated. Then, softly, he said to me, "Lady, you have but a moment left. If there is any final wish in your heart, speak now." I lifted my head and looked tenderly at my husband. "Alas," I said, "that I should die in the fairest days of my life." I wished to say more, but tears and sorrow choked my voice. This did not move him. He ordered the slave to proceed. But at that very moment, my husband's old nurse hurried in. She cast herself at his feet, weeping, and pleaded, "My child, for the sake of the one who suckled and raised you, show mercy. Remember, he who takes a life must answer for it. If you shed innocent blood in anger, your name will be stained, and the world will speak of you in whispers." Her tears reached his heart. He said, "For your sake, I shall let her live, but she shall bear a mark of her wrongdoing all her days." Then he ordered a slave to take a braided whip and strike me across my ribs and breast with all his strength. Blow after blow fell, until I fainted away. Still enraged, my husband had the slaves carry me out and leave me in a lonely house. By fortune, the nurse followed, cared for me, and healed me. I lay bedridden 4 months, and though I recovered, the scars you saw upon me yesterday remain to this day. When at last I could walk again, I returned to my former home. But all I found was an empty field. My husband, in his fury, had not only destroyed the house, but leveled the entire street upon which it stood. Against such power, who could complain? Even had I known where to seek justice, how could I dare? With nothing left, sorrow as my only companion, I returned to my beloved sister Zubeida, whose story your majesty has heard. She welcomed me kindly and said, "Such is life. It takes from us our treasures, our friends, our loves, or all of them at once." And to show the truth of her words, she told me then of the young prince who died by the jealousy of her 2 elder sisters, and how those sisters were later transformed into dogs. After comforting me, she told me that our elder sister too had come to live here since the passing of our mother. So, after giving thanks to God for reuniting us, we decided to live together from that day forward, never to be parted again. We led a quiet and peaceful life for many years. As I was entrusted with managing the household expenses, I took great pleasure in going myself to purchase the food and necessary supplies. Just yesterday, while shopping, I enlisted the help of a clever and amiable porter to carry our goods home. We kept him for a while, chatting with him for our own amusement. As twilight fell, 3 mendicant monks arrived, seeking shelter for the night. We welcomed them under certain conditions, which they gladly accepted. After we had invited them to share our meal, and they had played for us a joyful harmony in their own way, we suddenly heard a knock at the door. It was 3 merchants from Mutsun, each appearing very dignified. They too requested lodging, just as the monks had done. We agreed to the same conditions. Yet, not one of them respected the agreement. Nevertheless, although we had both the authority and power to punish them, we demanded only that they tell us the story of their lives. Our retribution was limited to politely asking them to leave after the night, denying them the stay they had first requested. Emperor Harun al-Rashid was greatly pleased to have learned all that he wished to know. The king openly expressed his delight at the tales he had heard. Satisfied in his curiosity, he wished to demonstrate both his authority and generosity to the 3 princely mendicants, and his compassion to the 3 young women. Without involving his vizier as was customary, the emperor personally spoke to Lady Zubeida. "Madam, the fairy who at first demanded strict obedience from you, did she tell you where she lived, or promise that she would return to restore the true forms of the 2 female hounds?" "Most mighty ruler of the faithful," Lady Zubeida replied, "I forgot to mention that the fairy gave me a small lock of her hair. She said that one day I might need her presence, and that if I ever burned these 2 strands, she would appear instantly, even if she were on the other side of Mount Kokad." "And where is this hair now, madam?" the emperor asked. "I have always kept it close," she answered. Indeed, she produced the lock of hair, and drawing aside the curtain between herself and the emperor, handed it to him. The emperor said, Then let us summon the fairy. Now is the most fitting time. I wish it so." Lady Zubeida consented, and a fire was brought. She placed the hair into it. Instantly, the palace trembled, and before the emperor appeared a fairy, a woman of surpassing beauty. "Most mighty ruler of the faithful," said the fairy, "I am ready to obey. You have summoned me for an important task. In gratitude, I have avenged you against the wickedness of the two sisters by transforming them into dogs. But if your majesty desires, I will restore them to their original forms." "Oh, beautiful fairy," the emperor said, "you would delight me beyond measure. Grant them this favor. Afterwards, we shall find ways to console them after their long punishment. Yet first, I have another request. Please aid the woman who suffered under a cruel and nameless husband. You, wise in all things, surely know of her plight. Pray tell me the name of the barbarous man who not only allowed her to be beaten so brutally by servants, but also unjustly deprived her of all her possessions. I marvel that such injustice, so inhuman and dishonoring, occurred without my knowledge." The fairy replied, "To please your majesty, I will restore the two hounds to their human forms. I shall heal this woman's scars so that no sign remains of her suffering. Then I will reveal to you the name of the man who tormented her." The emperor sent for the two hounds from Lady Zubeida's house. When they were brought forth, a cup of water was prepared at the fairy's command. She muttered words no one could hear, then poured the water over Lady Aminah and the two dogs. Immediately, the two dogs became two other beautiful women, and the scars upon Lady Aminah vanished entirely. The fairy then informed the emperor, "Most mighty ruler of the faithful, the man you seek is very near, for it is Prince Aman, your eldest son, and the brother of Prince Aman. Enchanted by this woman's beauty, as tales of her spread, he contrived a ruse to bring her to his home and make her his wife. As for the blows she suffered, he may be forgiven to some degree. His bride was overly compliant, and her excuses might exaggerate the truth. That is all I can say to satisfy your curiosity." With that, the fairy bade the emperor farewell and vanished. The king was filled with admiration and delight at the transformations wrought through his intervention. He performed gestures of grace that would be remembered for generations. First, he summoned Prince Aman and revealed to him the secret of his marriage, explaining the cause of Lady Amin's wounds. Without awaiting his father's command, the prince immediately reclaimed his wife. Then the emperor declared Zubeida as his wife. He suggested that the three other sisters marry the princely mendicants. Grateful, they accepted the matches. The emperor granted each husband a magnificent palace within the city of Baghdad, and appointed them to high office. They participated in the secret affairs of the court. The chief magistrate of Baghdad was summoned, along with witnesses, to record the marriages. And so, the renowned Emperor Harun al-Rashid, who brought happiness to so many who had endured unimaginable trials, was praised and revered by all.